fast, die red.
A new hand touches the
there you go.
beacon.
All right.
Oh, man.
Seriously. Ladies and gentlemen and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast. We're really trying really hard to be on topic today, and it is tough. And I'm just in a phenomenal mood for political reasons. And anyway, what was I saying? Oh yes, it's the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. Today we're talking about Meridia. My name is Rotten Deadeye. With me today are...
I'm James, also known as Aramithius.
I'm Andrew, also known as the White Guar, and that's Bo, also known as the Lore Pup.
That's the Lore Pup.
The Lore Pup.
And I am Felix, also known as Banu Hanamasashi.
Mm-hmm. And so Meridia. Kind of a very irritating way to start a quest in Skyrim. Yeah. You're just sitting there looting, and then all of a sudden, you're getting screamed at by a Daedra.
new hand touches the beacon.
And did they not like equalize? Did they not compress that audio file properly or something? I don't know.
See, I'm just glad they don't have the courier follow you around to give you the beacon.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Don't give mods any ideas.
Too late. Too late.
Rule 34. It will be there somewhere on the internet. But
somewhere out there, TrainWiz has just got a great idea to start a new, really annoying quest.
Yeah. I think part of the reason for that is it's to teach you not to auto loot, basically.
Is it? It seems like the rest of the game teaches you to do it. Anyhow, so Meridia, technically not a Daedra, right?
I mean, well, okay.
Kind of wants to be.
Hang on. The Daedra are people who weren't involved with the creation of Nirn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So was she responsible or had a hand in the creation of Nirn rather than merely co-opting a part of it?
The Magna Gay Pantheon almost seems to kind of intimate that she did a whole bunch of creation stuff at some point and was mucking around. So I'm inclined to say that she was probably more involved than the other Magna Gay anyway. It's because she did a whole lot of creation and mucking around with the orders of Aetherius around about that time anyway, if we can take the Pantheon to be accurate.
Okay, but Aetherius is not Nirn, though.
True. It's not Mundus. It does involve blending, although hang on, no, she tried to stop the Y blur and all of the shenanigans therein. So she was still trying to keep people
Nick J?
apart.
It's Reg.
Who is Nick J?
Reg.
I invited him. He might as well come in.
Excellent.
Everyone's Reg.
Yeah, is that Reg?
Yeah,
Hello, gentlemen.
Is that some Reg?
Yeah.
That is in fact. Can I turn on my video? I can turn on my video.
There's some Reg.
Called it.
I am Reg, also known as
called it.
Chris Nelson Jr. after a haircut. I am here to destroy this cast
Excellent.
Oh, man.
and argue that Canadian whiskey is baby's first brown liquor. And
Yeah,
real
whatever,
drink
whatever.
heavily peated Scotch straight from the heart of hell.
Says he, pouring something that's suspiciously like that into a glass.
Whatever. I just got my nice mug of like communist
Cilantro.
Canadian water.
No, it's ocean sauce.
Anyway, Meridia, Daedra, Aedra, Magna Gay, witch. We were back on that. So
Yeah.
I think I would say she's more involved with creation, or at least ordering creation, than most Magna Gay were, and perhaps goes beyond that even, because the Merid Nunda, I think, also does something to suggest that she's above the rest of them. She's linked to Namoli and Zero Lig, like they're a different class of being. rather than just the general hordes of courtiers or whatever that comprise most of the Magnagi.
So, this is actually something like specifically to the Magnagi, but in general Meridia as well. Am I sort of like, I mean, we all kind of know that like all of the Aedra and some of the Daedra are associated with developers, and some of this like the lore that surrounds those entities are sometimes inside jokes about the developers.
Yeah.
Does anybody get the impression that Meridia's a similar thing, like she's a project manager at Bethesda or something like that, and like the idea of the Magnagi being like, you know, occasionally coming by to look at to look at Mundus is sort of like, you know, developers or something, project managers that worked on like Fallout that kind of like wander over to see what's going on with Skyrim, you know? Like, hey guys, you need any work done over here? I got some bandwidth, you know, my action item list is low. You need anything done?
It would make sense in the context of like an office situation, because the CMYK and blend signs, those are the colors in a laser printer.
Well, they're also the colors of the colors of light. It's the way primary light color blends.
No, they're
Wait,
not the colors
of
of light. They're the colors of printing pigments.
Pigments. I'm sorry, you're right.
I've spent the last month screaming at Epson customer support because I bought a very expensive printer that is not performing properly. So I actually have had to, in my absence, become an expert on printing. So
you poor
light
bastard.
is red, yellow, and blue.
So what you're saying is that the Magnagi Pantheon is actually a very specific story about your experience with Epson customer support.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Chrome device is malfunctioning, and Meridia, who holds the whole of the black block under her hood, has to fucking deal with it.
Okay, so to get a bit more back on track and to answer Chris's question,
that's not what this cast is for.
Yeah, I don't think that's what we do here.
I know, right? But, to answer Chris's question, I find that if she's a metaphor for anything, it's a metaphor for Lucifer from the Bible.
Yes.
Because she's a star that falls to Earth and becomes like permanently entangled and enmeshed in the world of mortal men. And I find that there's a lot of parallels in terms of being in the heavenly court, having different views on how much one should or shouldn't interfere. They're a literal star. Lucifer was the morning star, and Meridia was a Magnagi, which is one of the stars in the sky, and she fell to Earth like Lucifer did, and then started influencing the hearts of men. So for me, I've always gotten that kind of like a new, fresh take on the devil with Meridia, rather than any kind of it's another developer joke. I've always gotten it more as like, you know, hey, by the way, the devil technically exists in Meridia, and it's a lady of light.
Yeah, where's she associated with Mundus? Like, I can get the kind of the associations with the Gregorian, some of the orders of angels in Genesis that come down and interfere with humans, because she was accused of consorting with other spirits. But when does she explicitly get involved with Mundus as such? I don't think that she would have been cast. Would she have been cast out for interfering with Mundus specifically? Is that the same thing? I just can't remember. Yeah. 8-But-T has it in the chat. She was consorting with illicit spectra, is the term that's used, but I don't know whether that links her to Mundus specifically. I'm just wondering if there was a specific source for it.
I don't know of any specific sources. For me, the first thing coming to mind was that like the earliest mention that I know of personally was a Meridia's conflict with other Daedra that were being worshipped by the aliens in Cyrodiil.
Yes.
That's basically the earliest notion I have. But I think that I seem to recall that there is a story somewhere explaining why she fell to Nirn or was banished from the Magnagi, but I can't remember what it was right now.
What was her? I am relatively uninformed in Meridia because I was told to get into this cast once it started and haven't had time to do research. Are we aware of her placement within the Magna Gay?
She was incredible.
Kind of.
Wasn't she? Wasn't she the daughter of Magnus, who
If-
may or
Oh, well,
not,
that really helps the satanic
Who-
allegory.
who
Yeah.
may or may not be an aspect of Mehrunes Dagon, or vice versa.
Again, this
Yeah.
is adding
Yeah.
strength to Felix's argument.
Yeah. She's.
Yeah.
It depends on what you. On who you consider to be the Chrome device to be. I think. I think if we're if I remember my pantheon correctly, and please slap me down if I'm wrong, that there's talk about that it considers the Chrome device to be her father, and only if you think the Chrome device is Magnus does that work. I think you make a reasonable case for that. There's very few other things that the Chrome device in the pantheon could be, I think, but okay. Felix is waggling his eyebrows. He has another possible answer.
I think the Chrome device is the Adamantine Tower.
Oh,
Okay, hold on.
Evan Smith
Time,
told
light, the dawn, infer.
yeah.
Evan Smith told me it was a version of Numidium.
That could also be it.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh my god! I just
Hang on.
got. Okay, Vivek comes rolling up in the hood, piloting this Chrome Numidium. Says, "Yo, check out the Chrome jaw on this baby," and then just goes stomping across.
It's got like hydraulic heels.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hang on, we've
Numidium
got-
with spinners.
Yeah.
Okay, but hang on. It's the line that we're after for what was happening with Meridia in the Magna Gay pantheon was Merid stopped such bullishness when she was cast out by the Chrome device, her father. So
Well, if skin is ideology, and we're talking about an alternate version of Numidium, what would the change from gold to chrome mean? That could.
Well, okay. Sorry,
Wheels
James.
for
Still kind of digging on Magnus as the Chrome device. I got to tell
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it's almost certainly Magnus, but this is an interesting tangent, and this is what
Wait,
Well-
James, can you say that quote again?
Yep. Merid stopped such bullishness when she was cast out by the Chrome device, her father.
Okay, that could be Magnus. It could also still be the Adamantine Tower, because the Magna Gay first sort of became fully realized, if you want to call it that, before the dawn, because that was when creation kind of started to be set, and you had like, okay, the Magna Gay and Magnus have all fled, and everything else is kind of just there.
Well, you've got. I think it might clarify things to if we talk about my recollection. I don't remember where I read this. Is that Adamantine or Durrani Tower or Adamantine Tower or whatever is considered to be Magnus's staff, right? And that and then I think Kirkbride suggested that it might be helpful to think of Adamantine Tower as the spaceship within which the Aedra arrived into Mundus.
Yep.
For those of you familiar with Jewish mysticism, it's the mercy seat upon which God is allowed to exist on Earth.
So it's both Magnus and the Adamantine Tower.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that it maybe the similarity, that maybe what's causing you to, maybe the stuff that's indicating that you might think that Adamantine Tower is Chrome device is because Chrome device is Magnus and so is Adamantine Tower.
Also,
Magnus was the will, and Adamantine Tower was the way.
Sure, and exactly, and what I'm suggesting is that the connection between Adamantine Tower and Magnus is, it's not like it's not easy to it's not as easy as Adamantine Tower was the device that Magnus created. but rather, or could have been, but that doesn't rule. It's just like Shiva and the Lingam and Vivek and Muatra. It's a part of Magnus, but it's a separate part of Magnus. It's both.
Okay, to sort of add to that, then I think it does say I think it's either Daggerfall or Arena, when you're like loading into the dungeon or something. It says this castle was built around the spire, the tower, and the inside of the tower is perfectly smooth with a silvery surface or something along those lines. Because when you actually visit it from the outside, it looks like a castle, but on the inside, it makes very clear mention that the actual tower is basically like a shiny rod that plunges deep, and that there's also apparently a clock that it seems to be counting down to something.
Mm-hmm.
An
ESO, yeah.
Yeah, and some of us have thought that clock is counting down to the new dawn. Not everyone agrees with that, and that's fine, but that's like a thing.
That's going to be a problem, considering the fact that, as we discover in Skyrim, it's very likely the new dawn isn't going to happen.
Or at
well,
least
clocks can be wrong.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's a device that if it's literally a timing device, then just because it goes off doesn't mean the thing has to happen. So yeah.
Kind of a Mayan calendar sort of situation.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like maybe
hey,
it's perfectly reasonable that to say that like when the clock goes off, that's when the new Kalpa starts. But it could also be better to say that when the clock goes off, that's when the Kalpa ought to start.
Yeah.
You know,
this is one of
it's like planned. That Judge Judy give like, come on, new Kalpa.
Something I wanted to throw in. I mean, this is mostly speculative, and I just want to see where we can go with it. But for the Chrome device, I mean, think of Chrome; it's highly reflective, and so with Magnus being the sun, I mean, you've got every prismatic color available in the sunlight. So if it's reflective, could that be what the Chrome device is referring to?
Feels
I don't know about that. I feel like the light thing might make more sense with Crystal like Law in Somerset Isle. The Adamantine Tower, to me, as I've understood it, and again, could be wrong here, I'm by no means an expert on this, but to me, it's always felt like it's both a spaceship, it's a tower counting down to something. It could be Magnus's staff. It could also be, I think it was the altar upon which Lorcan had his heart ripped out, I think is what they say.
Yeah.
So this tower has many different things. But it does seem like, perhaps there is some connection with Magnus, but it could also just be sort of its own separate thing. The first tower that allowed all the others to ultimately exist and become the foundation, the sounding rod, the tuning fork of existence, right? It could also be that.
Well, adding with what Johnny just said in chat, the chromatic scale or 12-tone scale is a musical scale with 12 pitches, so it could be like a multi-tonal tuning fork.
Right.
Which could also, I mean, if you imagine Magnus, he's got this tuning fork. It's a big tuning fork. Well, it's a staff. And then, I mean, I wanted to point out something else Johnny had in chat. It looks like it's from a Khajiit lore book. That Meridnunda is attributed to be the daughter of Magrus, which I think helps support the idea that Adamantia and Magnus and Meridnunda are very, or and the Chrome device rather, are all linked. Because we've got two different sources that say, okay, well, one says, okay, Meridnunda is the daughter of the Chrome device. The other says Meridnunda is the daughter of Magrus. We know that Magnus and Adamantia are related, and both of those could fit into the Chrome device. So,
question: what if we're overthinking this, and the Chrome device is literally a Chromebook that decides to fuck off once you ask it to do one too many things?
Dude, I've been working with Chromebooks for 2 weeks while subbing in a school district, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the assiest excuse for a laptop I've ever seen in my life. Awful.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, they work pretty well for the kids, and I mean, I get a different one every day.
Oh, sure.
You know,
And they cost
using-
like nothing. But
they're
Yep.
cheap as
but
hell.
you get what you pay for. Yeah.
Yes. But,
Baby's first
Okay.
laptop.
so,
Pairs well with Canadian whiskey.
so what about Meridia's sphere then?
Light.
Really?
See, I would.
Light?
I'm gonna kind of
Well,
take
okay,
off
what-
on this light thing here, and also go back to Felix. You were talking about the comparisons between Meridia and Lucifer. Lucifer is already attributed with light as well. Lucifer means the enlightened one. So we already have this metaphorical comparison with light and knowledge. So I'm wondering if perhaps that is where Meridia's sphere kind of crosses over Hermaeus Mora's a little bit. That she is well, actually in the Khajiit bit that Johnny pointed out, she is intellect without wisdom, knowledge without purpose. And so with that, I mean enlightenment, but not necessarily the wisdom to use it.
That raises some interesting thoughts in my own head. What if Meridia's sphere is not light? It is high energy physics.
Well, okay, so
'Cause-
we're technically all correct because the UESP says that Meridia, by her various titles, is known as Lady of Infinite Energies, the Bright Lady, the Strict but Fair Arbiter of Inner Luminance, the Sunfire, the Radiant One, the Keeper, the Lady of Light, and the Prince of Life. And the
She was a
Elder
nuclear
Scrolls Wikia
physicist.
article also makes mention of the fact that she's associated with life and like infinite energies, and it's part of why she hates necromancers so much.
The energies of living things is what I think she gets
That's
put
it,
in On Oblivion.
Yeah. So I mean that I think creates a connection between light and maybe knowledge and life. So maybe I mean is her whole thing that while you I was gonna make a joke about while you were studying this, I was studying the blade, but that didn't make sense.
While you were studying Daedra magic, I was studying nuclear physics.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, I lost my train of thought, but I was going somewhere in that vague direction. Life and light, and the thing is, she is cold about it. She doesn't necessarily care about living things aside from the fact that they're alive. So here's she'll torture you. She doesn't give a shit so long as your life is maintained. She's not snuffing out that candle, so to speak.
Quantity over quality of life.
Yeah, but then you got the undead, and she's like, nope, fuck that. Nope, kill it. It's dead.
It also makes me wonder how much of RK's toes she's stepping on.
Yeah.
I see Chris nodding like,
Do you think RK minds?
I mean, if
Think
she's
RK
hot-
can mind?
Well,
That's what I kind of what I mean. Yeah.
He's got Mana Marco up his ass, so I think he's busy.
Yeah. But if Meridia seems quite
RK getting pegged by Mana Marco while
my
Meridia
God.
watches.
It's canon.
I mean, let's
They're
be
such
honest.
proud boys.
Mana Marco's pretty, so he got like a power top thing going on, or
Yeah, probably. So
He's a power bottom.
So why does Meridia seem to have such a hair up her ass about undead, do you think?
It's gross.
It's a manipulation of energy. She's associated with the energy of living things, which I'm still not convinced is enough to make it a sphere. Otherwise, they would have made that connection in On Oblivion, because her sphere is obscured, but associated with the light of living thing, or with the energies, light and the energies of living things. But and it's that subversion of the energies of living things. It's that is what she's getting at. It's that she's quite. She's quite black and white. It's in how she deals with things. It's that this is light, this is life, and this is energy. It's I imagine that not necromancy and how it manipulates souls is doing something to the soul's energy, and so being undead is going to do something to that energy and make it not Meridia's anymore. So it's just, you're taking things away from me, sort of thing. That was my understanding, anyway.
Well, I mean, I think you kind of have to agree with me on a not. I freely admit, a not a very well-funded concept. But I've suggested before that there's sort of like a path of magicka that moves from, you know, the sun and the stars from Aetherius through Oblivion into Mundus, and then is used to create souls, which then leave the body and return back up to Aetherius via the Dream Sleeve. And that manipulation of magicka to create to facilitate necromancy is therefore a perversion or an interruption of the natural flow of magicka and light, and that might be why she objects to it. But I'm grasping at straws, and it's a whole lot of what ifs.
Yeah, I think you're maybe onto something there. I mean, I was thinking of it like, okay, here's this thing that's alive. This is the way it should be, but it died. Now we're gonna refill it with new energy. Well, that totally disrupts my chi flow, buddy. And I'm not okay with that. I gotta, you've interrupted the natural order of life, and so
I have for the last while had kind of the conception of Meridia as kind of a zealous scientist. So to me, the thought that the explanation for why she's against necromancy is that it just breaks the rules. It would be like it would be like a physicist seeing something fall up.
Yeah.
And okay. Meridia is objecting thoroughly to the thought of that.
Yeah, but a scientist's reaction to something falling up is, why is it doing that? Let's see if we can replicate it.
Right. It's sort of like a... Not... Yeah, so in theory, that's what a scientist's reaction should be to seeing something that doesn't make any sense. It should be, I'm going to have to reconsider a lot of stuff. The human reaction to seeing something that's not supposed to work that way is to go, oh, no, fuck all that.
Exactly.
What have you guys done? Where's the trickery going? This is not supposed to work this way at all. And you can see that happen whenever, like, a new thing happens in the scientific community that upends some kind of, like, really important... or commonly held theory that doesn't make any sense. A lot of scientists will react angrily at it and say that's horseshit. That's not supposed to work that way.
See also the contemporary response to Einstein.
Yeah. The color exists because of her realm acting as a prism to break it up, and without her, the actual Mundus was just pure gray, maybe like Jiggalog. I think that's an interesting idea, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't remember reading anything about that, Doc. And if I did, my knee-jerk reaction would be interesting idea, but I'd like to see I'd first off like to see somebody say that it ain't that way in an in-game document or something, and then I'd like to see somebody argue that it is that way, and at that point I'd start seriously taking it. I'd start taking it seriously, because that's just how lore works in my head. I'd have to see somebody argue against it before I take it seriously.
Oh, that is this podcast in a nutshell.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So,
can we talk about ESO?
No. Why would we talk? Yes, please. What about well, you want to talk about what she does in ESO, which is plenty?
Yeah, she does a lot. She's very important.
Yeah, very prominent.
So in the vanilla base storyline, criticisms aside, Meridia ends up helping the Vestige to defeat Molag Bal. Specifically, she has a city in Cold Harbor that she has control over, but it's in the middle of Molag Bal's thing, you know. and so it's almost like she's taunting him with it. I recall there being a scene where Molag Bal is all, he's this giant looking over you, and he starts throwing, smoldering stones at where you're at. And Meridia's like, nope. And then there's a shield and it crashes in, and she's this yellow ghosty looking lady. And she hides her true identity from you at first. But she is sort of an ally. I feel like is too strong a word, because to think of her as a friend is not necessarily accurate. There is a dungeon where you are fighting disciples of Meridia, and there's a cool skin you can get through, or you can get if you, or maybe it's a trial. I think it's a trial. Yeah, and you get this dope skin where like your eyes are, glowing yellow, and it's pretty cool. And then she's also present in I am blanking here. It was a DLC. What was it?
It's Somerset.
Yeah,
She's involved with the machinations of Somerset. Yeah.
Yes, she was. And then.
But yeah, the whole Molag Bal thing though, that just strikes me as kind of she's kept part of the house after the court ruling.
Yeah.
And yeah, now that the divorce has been finalized, but which also would explain, now I think about it, Cameron's confusion about Cold Harbor, because Mankar Cameron assigns Cold Harbor to Meridia. In Oblivion.
Yeah, which I think that was ZeniMax's clever way to try and make use of MK's slip up in an email. Just to, he did it. I mean, let's just kind of roll with it. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
And I'll bet you Schick had a hand in that.
Yeah, well.
I'm just imagining Trilling as much as like, I'll never tell.
I'm trying to find.
But yeah, there was that Reddit thread that was talking about Molag Bal being in love with Meridia. So I just now can't help but see them as kind of as a kind of a long running lovers spat between the two of them. I know there's some serious logic holes in that one, but it feels right. Sorry?
If we're going with that, then we also need to point out that Meridia and Nocturnal are like those two girls who have to keep interacting with each other, but they fucking hate each other. It's like, oh, nice dress. Did you buy it at Value Village?
Look at you. Wow,
They're
that
so brave
shirt
for
makes you
wearing
look so
that.
thin.
Yeah.
Well, one is night and one is light. So yeah, they're opposites.
The only thing they agree on is night lights.
I was about to make that joke. Yeah.
I had one, but I didn't want to derail too much.
Come on, look at where we are, man.
So I looked up Meridia and UESP to remind myself of where else she was. And yeah, it was Somerset, specifically in the form of Darian Gautier.
Yep.
He was her champion, and you find out, spoiler alert, towards the end that he's technically a Daedra himself. He was just created by Meridia to do her bidding. And which because you meet him, I think, through the Daggerfall Covenant storyline in the base game. But yeah, she's kind of almost a tertiary. She's kind of outside the whole thing, just using the Golden Knight and Dawnbreaker as kind of
right. What are her minions called? The
Aurorans.
Aurorans, yes.
What was it? Aurans or Aurorans?
Yeah.
Aurorans.
Yes.
Because Golden Saints have a name. It's very similar.
Yeah.
Well,
I was going to say, if you unlatinize Aurorans, it will literally mean golden ones.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me look up Golden Saints because I want to.
Golden Saints are generally associated with Sheogorath.
Yeah.
Driven. And what are the other ones? The
Ariels.
Dark Seducers?
Ariels. Ariels are the planes.
Okay.
Okay.
So they still have that AUR beginning
Yeah.
there.
There's a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that going
Ariel,
around.
Aurbis, Auriel, Aureals, Aurorans.
To like the one person who works in like the filing department at ZeniMax Online Studios who listens to this Lorecast, the only person at ZeniMax Studios who listens to this Lorecast, more Elm effects, please. I could use some more Elm effects.
I'm pretty sure.
Actually,
I'm pretty sure if you wander through the Imperial City, like sneaking and listen to the Dremora talk, occasionally they'll say things that sound like Elm effects. I mean, it's probably a derivation, but anyway, sorry, Felix.
Low Elm effects instead of high Elm effects.
It's taking forever because I've started doing other things and like new job and stuff like that. But I had been and still arguably am. It's just really slow progress now. I have been working on like a Hammerfell prequel story akin to like my Arya Redguard Coda thing, but instead it covers how the Redguards invaded Hammerfell. And to do that, I wanted to really show the world. And back then, like how there would have been different languages, so I wanted to play around with languages. And so I've had to actually be looking at Elm effects and trying to sort of create it from just a few little sparse things that I have. So Chris, if you want to talk and perhaps collaborate on this later, I'm happy to do so because I have a few notes on it.
Ooh, could be good.
He's speechless.
There's actually been some very good posts in on Reddit and UASP, and especially in the Imperial Library about translating Elm effects and determining like consistency of terms. And
yeah, that's where I pulled a lot of my resources.
Yeah. And if anybody's interested, there's Google will help you out. It's not hard to find, but there's a lot. There's like a disturbing amount of Elm effects out there that, for one reason or another, is a little bit difficult to identify as Elm effects. Because the problem is that Elm effects clearly dictates. I know we're off the rails here, but I think this is a good subject. Elm effects clearly dictates Elvish languages. You can get a lot of it off of Dunmaris, and which seems to align pretty heavily with Elm effects in a lot of places. But the problem is that perception of something that that seeming alignment of the Dunmer language and Elm effects might just be the way. It might just be legitimate Elm effects that's just not written in all caps.
Yeah.
And the problem is that I'm not entirely sure if writing Elm effects in all caps is like a mandatory thing or not in ZeniMax or Bethesda. I don't think it is either.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those things that, oh, it's Elm effects, so it has to be in caps. Like people just kind of go that way.
Well, think about it. I mean, we kind of got that from. Well, we got that from the lessons, and the 36 lessons did Elm effects in all caps, and I think a couple of other books in Morrowind, maybe, that were probably Kirkbride writing them anyway. But other than that, I don't think there was ever an agreed upon thing where like, okay, we're going to make Elm effects always in all caps so that people know that it's Elm effects. So it's part of the problem is that it's very hard to identify Elm effects for caps are cruise control for cool. It's part of the problem is that Elm effects is really hard to identify because sometimes it's used intermingled with a native language of another race, like Dunmaris or Aldmaris or something like that. And so
there's also in a great degree of Nordic and Breton as well, even though those sources
irritatingly
are more limited.
Yeah.
Could it have been that Elm effects originally was written in all caps, but as other languages developed that had capitalization, there was some linguistic drift?
That's entirely reasonable.
Possibly.
But although, I mean, like the argument that Kirkbride made for Elm effects is that every word in Elm effects is a spell. or that every word in Elnifex has an effect, that it's not just you're not just speaking, because Elnifex was the language of the Elnifey. These are the original magical creatures just barely descended from Adra. So it sort of makes sense that like every word that they said would be like Thum almost. Like every word that they said would be would have a magical effect of some kind because they were so closely tied to the creation of the world. But
I would imagine that the advent of the Thum as a dragon language and that kind of thing probably supersedes that.
Yeah, it could.
At least from a design perspective, it feels the same. It fills the same niche. So I think that might have been the conception at one point. I just think as a development, I don't think that's what it's intended to be anymore.
Right. Yeah,
So,
and that's unfortunate, because I think one of the reasons why it was written in all caps in 36 lessons was because it was supposed to indicate to you that this was a word of power, basically.
well, then perhaps the advent of writing Elnifex in lowercase was like a safety mechanism.
Right. I was just
much
thinking
in the
that.
same way that Germanic tribes have lost their original word for bear, because invoking the name for that original word was invoking being eaten by a bear about 30 seconds later.
That's why nobody says the word Candyman anymore, because that's how you get the Candyman. You just say his name 3 times.
Whose name?
Who? Huh?
Candlejack? Is that
Cobra Commander?
Yeah. So, what, man? Yeah, right. So not this time, Satan. So yeah, Meridia.
Yeah, I'm curious about the creation of the colored rooms and her making herself a Daedra, more or less. It was something that she chose. Well, she was kicked out of Aetherius, but then refracted Magnus's light through herself to make the colored rooms. The colored rooms are, well, they're, I don't know whether we've got confirmation that refraction went internal, and the colored rooms are Meridia in the same way that the Daedric realms are for the princes, or for the original princes. But there's that element of sort of self-creation and self-choice there. That this is something that she was angling for, and manipulating Akatosh to do so, if the texts that we've got indicate that, because it talks about stretching the dragon at one end and compressing at another.
This goes back to a bit of what I was saying earlier about her realm being light and the Chrome device being adamantine tower, which relates to time. And if you fuse these concepts together, as the Red Guards would see them, it's space-time, the space-time continuum. If you manipulate light, you manipulate time, right? Because as you get closer to the speed of light, time gets all weird, right? As you're approaching the speed of light. So that's, for me, like what I interpret as, compressing the dragon at one end and extending him at the other. That's space-time manipulation right fucking there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. If the manipulation of space-time can produce odd behavior out of light, which is one of the reasons why we're able to see, or the electromagnetic spectrum, I should say, which is one of the reasons why we're able to see gravitational anomalies without actually seeing the object that produces them, is because we can measure the distortion of light as it passes through them, and then prove that there's a thing there, but without actually having to see the thing. We can just see the dent that it makes on the bed sheet. We don't actually have to see the thing.
Damn, science is cool.
Yeah, but if you but one of the interesting things about Elder Scrolls lore is that there's no stated obvious god of space.
Yeah.
Now, I think most people will probably agree it's Lorcan.
Yeah.
But
no.
Yeah, but again, there's arguments to be made there. Like
I know.
Yeah, and so that's one of the because we don't have an exact perfect fit. I mean, personally, I kind of like I can understand the Lorcan Akatosh like dichotomy. Those two are the opposite, parts of the enantiomorph. I can get that, but
the collective of the Aedra.
I personally like the idea, just personally, that Akatosh represents all of space-time, both. I mean, I like that too. I like Lorcan being space and Akatosh being time, but I like the idea that Akatosh can be both space and time by just being one of them, because they're both the same thing. The other reason why I don't like that idea.
Figured that out.
Well, the other reason why I don't like that idea is because this is Tamriel we're talking about, and there's absolutely no guarantee that space and time are the same thing in Tamriel.
Yeah.
Right, which is why I would argue that it's actually Padme who's the god of space.
And I would just remind everyone that this is explicit in the Khajiit myth. I'm not sure if it's explicit anywhere else. Not the Khajiit myth. I can't remember where it is, but Kine or Kinnereth is the one who creates the space for Lorcan to make the world. The space where the world happens is Kinnereth's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So she's space as in extension. Lorcan is physical stuff, if I can put it that way.
Well, remember Vivek describes, and a lot of other actual real-world religions will describe the stars as one area, the ground as another area, and then the air between the two of them, the middle air, is what is supposed to be Vivek's realm. But it's it's helpful to think of Lorcan as a god of being a lot of things at once. Yeah, no, tell me about it. And it's it depends on who's writing them, basically. It's helpful to think of as far as Kine being the god that made the creation of the world possible. It's helpful to think of the air as being a volume that a culture might be aware of, right? So, if the volume of air did not exist, then you couldn't put anything in it, aka the ground, right? So, like the world exists inside of air. If that makes any sense.
Yes.
If you twist your head around a little.
I can see that, but to add to sort of what you and James have been saying, there's a line that I find often gets overlooked in the Redguard monomyth. And I know we're just completely off the rails here, but I promise I'm going to bring it back to Meridia with what I'm about to say.
Neat.
Yeah, I'm great at this. Thanks for making me part of the cast, boys. Anyway. There's a line that's overlooked, which is that Satak was the first serpent, and all the worlds to come rested in the glimmer of its scales. So the glimmer of his scales, I've also interpreted those scales to be the waters of memory, like sort of shiny scales, like waves.
Okay.
But that's not what I really want to talk about. So it's the glimmer of the scales, implying that light is already a thing. So dawn, pre-dawn, we can talk about that a bit more. Then the second part of that thing is that that the worlds had no room to move, breathe, or even be. And so they called out for help. But since there was nothing outside of Satak, something had to come from within. And that was Akel, the hunger. And it was the best hunger. And so things began to move and eat. And so for me, the idea is that Akel, which sounds remarkably close to Akka, so the Akka shard, is what actually came out. And so Satak is space. And only with the advent of Akel, or Akka, the time dragon, or like the hunger from within, that allowed for things to move and start. And when things move, that is time. And together they form space time.
Voltron, no. What?
Or Ultron, yes.
Okay. Yeah, together they form space time. They form three-dimensional, or I should say four-dimensional space, three-dimensional objects that change over time. Yeah.
Yeah. So that for me is a part that's always overlooked, is that there was light and creation, but nothing had room to move. And the implication of movement implicates time.
Right.
And so a lot of people, when they say, oh yeah, like Akel, he's the hunger, and then Satak and Satakal, they become the world serpent. But then for some reason, people think that Akel is still Lorcan, when the Lorcan analog is more like Sep. But I'm getting ahead of myself with other stuff. I just really wanted to focus on the glimmer of the scales and the fact that it makes it very clear in the Rhaegar monomyth that space was a thing before time was, and nothing could move in space because everything was within it.
Mm.
That's actually the other way around compared to most of them, because Akatosh is the first Aedra to form, and therefore there's a before and after, and then the other lot arrive.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
Red Guards are the best men. What can I say?
Yeah.
They're the best at what they do.
Yeah.
They have curved swords. What else do you need?
Curved.
They also have
sword.
rum. Rum is canonically a Red Guard thing. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they've won.
Yeah. There was a comment in chat that was looking at the connection between
Kine and Meridia.
Meridia and Kine.
Yeah, Doc. What document was that you're talking about?
It's in Kirkbride's IRC questions. I'll ping it in chat, or ping it in the.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's what no one has ever seen is the connection between Meridia and Kine. Let that sink in. What do they, when connected, both govern? Think about Knights of the Nine. One made the night, one opposed the night. One reigned forever because he was gone. One said, no, I will wait until he comes back. Yeah. Quit mixing up gods and demons, they're just emotions. In magic, those are real feels. Meridia is the color of his return when curtained by rain. That blink in your eye when that postcard isn't answered, that weird huff in your chest when you're waiting for that text, that whole night when you're waiting and forced sleep so the morning comes, and you hear rain on the window pane and figure, fine, they weren't listening. There's a whole bunch more, but that's the start of it.
Yeah, I remember reading that document years ago, and that's something that I did want to bring up, and I'm glad we finally got an opportunity to talk about it. You get to see a rainbow, which is the breakup of light spectrum after it rains, and Kine is often seen as a rain-related goddess, right? Yep. And so that, for me, is the connection. And also water, in terms of how it changes the angle of light, is also something that we could attribute to Meridia, which would explain why she has connections with Aetherius, the Dream Sleeve, life and life energies and infinite energies of, say, souls returning to the Dream Sleeve. Like, there's plenty of connections to be made here, I find.
Yeah, and if you're talking about rainbow as refraction through water, that's pretty much what Meridia did with regards to creation of the colored rooms as well. She bent Aetherius and bent time and space, and color was the result. So she creates the rainbow in some way, shape, or form, to make it horribly simplistic.
So does that mean before Meridia, Mundus was in black and white?
Maybe?
That's a reasonable inference given what we're talking about, but I would also say that that's not how colors work.
But it would explain the gray maybe in a new and very hilarious way.
Yeah. Yeah, although...
Well, yes, that's my coda now.
Yes, actually, because the Magna Gay Pantheon, Merid was fighting against the Y Blur, and basically fighting to keep everything separate and so on. So, which is keeping all of the colors in their place as part of the spectrum. So, there's all that sort of association with the rainbows and variety as such.
Well, that ties back to Meridia's Satan, because that's an introduction of chaos and complexity.
Yeah, I kind of was heading into this cast thinking that, hang on, she cares about living things, but she doesn't care about any particular person. So long as there is life, she's not particularly fussed. But she might also.
I mean, you could make a very similar argument for the Morning Star.
Yeah, and I was thinking that she might be fussed about variety of life. In thinking that as light has however many different colors, then she wants to maintain life in all of its variety as well. There's also part of me that wants to go off and talk about Spinoza, which I will do briefly.
Trying to do Spinoza briefly? Good luck.
Okay, or Leibniz maybe. I can't quite remember. The best of all possible worlds. I think that was Leibniz. But he was convinced that so long as there was a maximal amount of life in a world, that was the best possible world. I think Meridia probably has that sort of a view, that what that life does, so long as it's the proper form of life, as in a living thing, she's not actually bothered. That explains why she's callous. And it also explains to an extent I can't remember what they're called, the purified?
The purified?
Yeah.
They're in ESO.
Yeah, that explains their lack of free will, because it allows her to say, well, you can exist, you are having life, but you won't fuck up the other life that I want and I like, and so I can keep all of my lovely little bits of life, and they can all be a glorious rainbow of livingness.
Meridia seems like that person who loves to have pets but doesn't really care about their well-being. They just appreciate that they exist in their presence. And Meridia is actually very much against free will, which again kind of relates back to the whole Satan analogy that I offered at the start of this. And I think also the 16th of Morning Star, like the month of Morning Star, is her summer reading, which just, I mean, come on, it's bright Satan. Like, that's what it is.
Wouldn't it be the first of Morning Star, though? It's just to be perfect, but it'd be the first prince rather than the last.
No, I think it is unfortunately 16th of Morning Star.
Shame.
Well, it's the 16th because it's the middle of the bell curve.
I can't find it right now, but I know I saw it. Well, okay, maybe it was under the Meridia article.
Elaine, your name is probably unpronounceable to an American.
Sorry, no, not the 16th. It's the
thank you for
13th of Morning Star. Unlucky number 13.
Oh, perfect.
Uh-huh.
So there we go.
Okay.
13th of Morning Star.
Okay. And I can't read anything into that. Not right this second. Give me a second. I need to look up the scripture of numbers.
Well, in this awkward silence, what's up with her rock?
You mean
what's up with that really loud pebble that she has?
Oh, Elaine's asking something with his sub-message. Isn't the Magna Gay text about Meridia in the Imperial Library the one where Kirkbride implied some occulty stuff like it was all real? I've always wondered whether he actually believed that or he was kidding. The answer is yes.
What he actually said? What I think he said it was that it was a Tinderloss trap to deal with some things in this world and Tamriel. So quite how much he was equating that to stuff in this world.
Yeah, I mean, it was that, and it was also stuff in Tamriel. That's kind of how he wrote some stuff. Sometimes was he would just write about stuff that was happening in his actual life. Sermon 37 is like that. Sermon 37 is about Kirkbride and Vivek both dealing with the fact that the lore community has been clicking on the whole time while he hasn't been involved, and all this kind of stuff has happened while it, whether Vivek wanted it to or not, and all this stuff happened to Vivek whether he wanted it or not, and it's about Kirkbride being out of the lore community and then coming back in and going, holy shit, what the
hell is
all this
this
new stuff? So yeah, it's
who are you people?
Is it occulty? I mean, it reads like a cult, but I mean, I don't think it's a document that Kirkbride intended to have magic in it, like the 36 Lessons. But I mean, in a way, everything he writes is supposed to have magic in it. So yeah.
Okay, then like the magic of the pomegranate banquet, I'm very concerned about.
Oh well.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to figure out a way of phrasing exactly what the magic is in the 36 Lessons because I want to be able to wrap that up by the Sermon 36. And so I'm having to read a lot about magic, and the best stuff that I've read so far that was most helpful was written by Jung. There's another thing for you to click off.
Hey, I was like,
Yes.
And in the Red Book, he talks about a dream where he meets a magician. I think I mentioned this before on the cast, and he basically in this dream he's talking to the magician and he says, you know, people tell me that you're the person to talk to about magic, and the magician says something like, people do be saying that, don't they? And he's like, well, can you explain magic to me? And the magician's like, no, I don't know shit about magic. And Jung's like, well, why do people tell you say that you know a lot about magic? And the mage says something like, well, because they've observed that I know that I can do magic. And Jung is obviously at this point very frustrated, and he's just like, what is even your deal? Can you give me a straight answer? And the magician's like, yeah, absolutely, ask a question. And Jung's like, can you explain magic to me? Or can you do magic? And the magician says, apparently. Like, I don't try, but yeah, it happens. And Jung's like, how does it work? And the magician's like, I have no fucking idea. And basically the takeaway from it, because basically the story ends with Jung just going, hey man, go fuck yourself, and he leaves. He ends the conversation with the magician. And then the commentary continues in that chapter where Jung is like, wow, I fucked up because I was so impatient with this conversation with this magician that it didn't occur to me that he was imparting wisdom on me at the time. And now that I think back on it after the fact, I realize that what he was trying to tell me was that magic, it can't be explained, because to explain or to understand magic removes your ability to do it. Because magic in and of itself is the manipulation, is the intentional, is the subconscious, because again, this is Jung we're talking about, so the subconscious, the inner self is the divine, is your inner divinity manipulating the divine around you. So it's like the Force. But in this case, the Force only works if you don't understand how it's working and you don't do it on purpose.
Which is why Metachlorians were a terrible idea.
Right.
I was also going to say, if you're looking at magic and fiction and so on, another person to look at is Michael Moore.
Yes.
In that respect. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
it's Michael Moore and there's another comic book artist. Help. Comic book writer. Michael Moore and
I can't remember.
Who's the guy who did the Invisibles?
No idea.
No, gone. Nah, I can't brain.
Also,
is that Michael Moore that did the
talking about
Invisibles?
Meridia?
Yes.
No,
Yes, we are.
I don't think we're talking about about them today.
NVIDIA?
Help install my new graphics
Grant Morrison.
drivers.
Michael Moore and Grant
Meridia
Morrison.
N64.
Michael Moore and Grant Morrison are two sort of like opposite ends of modern, like Western esotericism and modern magic. If you sort of like read the stuff that they write or say about magic, you'll get basically two opposing views, because they also coincidentally know each other and think they're both assholes. Spoiler alert, it's because they're both assholes. And they have, they sort of have this sort of debate going on, and like passive aggressive, snippy kind of like comments about, like, Grant Morrison said this about you. What do you think about that? And that kind of stuff. And it's like they're both like rappers, and they have beef, but they never get around to recording a song. And so they but if you read the stuff that the two of them say about magic, you'll get a very good, concise, encapsulation of the two ways you can think about modern magic. So it's very useful to read what the two of them say about it. And because they're both talking shit about each other, then you have great like comments about the advantages and disadvantages or the horseshit and reality of both positions, and it's very useful is what I'm getting at. Their little argument has been very educational.
Yeah.
And a big
relate
healthy
that to
part of
Meridia?
my soul is telling me that it's the best part is none of it's real. So like I have
Like
to like
magic.
I have to suspend that disbelief, you know, to get any practical application to get any practical advice out of it. But yeah, that's the magic spell that is the 36 Lessons of Vivek is a really serious challenge, and I'm trying very hard to honestly to figure out what the fuck it is. But whatever.
Yeah.
Only on Sermon
Yeah.
23. Give me a break.
So Meridia and artifacts. I think the only big thing that we haven't really talked about, and Umaril.
Yeah, what's up with the
whether this-
rock?
Hmm?
What's up with that
Oh.
really shiny rock of hers that's really loud?
the
Jeez,
beacon.
it is though. I don't think we ever got like it's supposed to be like her orb or something like it's like some it's a MacGuffin basically. Like I don't think we ever get an explanation of exactly what the fuck that thing is for other than to bug you. know?
Okay, so just by the name, Meridia's beacon. It's a
Mhm.
beacon of light. It calls
Mhm.
to those who would support her. Like that's kind of the
It's an
vibe.
SQL query.
Sure.
Mhm.
Look, I'm just saying basically if it's a beacon, what do beacons do? What are they made out of? It's something that either catches light or reflects light so that we can see it and guide ourselves towards it. Right? Like
Well,
that's-
a beacon that reflects light has a refractor in it. I think a beacon is supposed to produce light.
Okay, so then it's a beacon producing light and also showing, oh, we should go over there. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
that's always the vibe I took from it.
So then is it Meridia's beacon as in it's a beacon that Meridia produces, or is it a beacon that signals Meridia?
Both.
Okay.
Yes.
Both, yes, both.
Yeah, I
is
like
good.
that. Mhm. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
fancy light bulb.
It's,
It's one of the Philips Hues. It's all RGB and you have to connect your cell phone to it.
As has been building over this cast, because I have, as previously stated, done basically zero research on Meridia, which is the best way to be coming into these casts because it means that I can be totally wrong with confidence.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
What do you
how I
think
do
you
every
do
cast.
every day?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been starting a business, so yeah, pretty much.
Oh yeah. Oh, then you get it. Yeah, exactly. You're going to be wrong a lot, and you kind of have to embrace the suck. Yeah.
Yeah. Meridia's beacon is, at least in the conception that I have developed over the last hour or so, basically a query out into Mundus for does whoever is within a certain radius of this sphere meet the qualifications for being a champion of myself? And if yes, deafen them. If no, be a pretty rock.
So I also just have a very terrible not safe for work thought.
Oh
Oh,
boy.
good God, bring it on.
What do you just stick it in your prison wallet or something?
Since
No.
when are we at work?
No, it's like the beacons are literally her cosmic turrets.
I mean,
Why-
our ideas are not mutually exclusive because this is the Bethesda universe.
This is true. Now, okay, here's the thing. I see Andrew shaking his head. Now, hear me out here. The beacons might be her turrets because by her view, she is so pure that she shits light. And if a beacon gives off light, it's like, oh, look, see? Yeah, a new hand touches the beacon. Of course you're worthy because, like, look, I'm just so great.
I'm
And if
so
you
great,
found
my ass
this, then
smells like a
you're
rose.
Great by
and-
extension.
Yeah.
You smell like me.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from. Yeah, see, Chris gets it.
I'm having a hard time arguing with that.
Oh, God.
It's kind of distressing.
Well, I mean, the damn beacon's fucking everywhere. You can leave it in a container, and then walk away, and then a half an hour later open up a completely different container, and some bitch is there again, staring at you.
Yep.
Go on, pick me up. Go on. Go on, you know you
You
want
know
to pick me
you
up. Pick
want
me up.
me.
Oh God, what
Yeah.
what are we doing with our lives that we get to this point?
Pick me up.
It's 2020. Who
Rub
cares?
me on your face. Go ahead, do it.
Dude, we're enjoying the epilogue at this point.
Yeah, really. But the shit show of a movie is winding down at the end of the year. Or
The
cranking
credits
back up
will
again. I can't
roll
figure
on
it out.
January 1st, and we'll be thanked for our participation with a credit.
No, because there's going to be a
coupon.
post-credit scene that makes us tense for the sequel.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, you're assuming the studio hasn't been closed already.
I don't know. I just know I'm never coming back to this theater ever again.
apart from Dawnbreaker, has she actually been associated with anything apart from that and the Beacon?
Yeah.
I can't see
the Ring of the
anything
Khajiit
else.
or something? Yeah.
I think so.
Ring of the Khajiit was Mephala.
Yeah, it's associated with Meridia
Oh,
and Mephala.
oh, interesting. It's like
Okay.
a lab.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't really think Daedric artifacts in some cases, I don't think Daedric artifacts are actually produced by Daedra. I think they're Daedric artifacts, like they're just, you know, they were made in Daedricton.
Yeah.
in Daedrichamshire, you know? And
No,
they've got made in Oblivion on the back, you know?
No, they've got either that or they're good enough and a particular Daedra pays a particular amount of lunar currency to take out a sponsorship deal for a fixed period, and then they're up for bidding again.
Oh, those sponsorship deals, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
Daedric artifact.
A new hand
brought
touches
to you
the
by
beacon,
Raid
brought to you by
Shadow
Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah.
I really am Chris Jr. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm just like, yeah.
I
This
have
artifact was brought to you by Skillshare.
I'm already checked out, so
Okay, boys, unless you got anything else, I think we should call it here. We're rapidly
we're done.
losing ourselves
We're
in
done.
the sauce.
This podcast brought to you by Lunar Currency. It's great.
Okay,
God.
so what are we doing next?
Right,
I have it on the
James
calendar.
had
I can tell you.
something?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Molag Bal.
It is more like ball.
Ooh,
Okay.
the Chris cast.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Goody goody.
We're gonna have fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
I don't know if anybody doing anything with Molag Bal has ever had fun.
Yeah.
This might be a first.
Mr. Hansy.
I mean, depending on what your fetish is.
Trust me, Molag Bal's fetishes are a whole lot more intense than yours.
Yeah.
It's basically an N+1.
I didn't say it was my fetish. I'm saying depending on someone else's fetish, they may say, "Oh, hell yeah."
We'll do our best
Molag-
not to get any fan art of Molag Bal doing like the uwu face. I'm not asking for that. Do not send it to me at rottendeadite@gmail.com.
Yes. Oh.
Hmm?
Speaking of emails. Speaking of emails, we started having vague thoughts of we should probably have some questions and stuff that, for people who actually answer. So if you want us to actually if you want to ask us anything about casts that are upcoming or stuff that we've just done, then drop us an email at selectiveslorecast@gmail.com and we will sift through the things and answer them at some point on the show.
Yep. Doesn't have to be on topic. I'm just going to throw that out. Probably we shouldn't bother if they're off topic. That's fine. Nothing's on topic on this cast anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I was gonna say,
that should be the free box
Yeah.
in the bingo.
Yeah,
Off
off topic.
You get that anyway.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody want
Dune,
T-shirts?
something bingo.
Anybody in chat? Do Selectives Lorecast T-shirts strike you as a good or a bad idea? I'm just asking. There isn't
That
one
sounds
yet.
awesome.
I'm just
I'd wear one.
That sounds
would
like a
love the
terrible idea.
of just
I love
like,
it.
okay.
Yeah,
Or you-
okay.
or you could
I would
just send
actually
me-
love it.
You can just send me the logo and I'll make my wife make it.
Oh
Yeah,
well,
like,
I mean,
like ape with like things like apes together strong.
Nerds
with the twigs.
together, even more nerdy.
Oh, and that's
Nerds
gotta be
together
like
or more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we should do something with the logo, and then we'll figure something else out.
Yep.
But I'm up for suggestions. So if anybody's got suggestions, join the Discord.
Yep.
And
maybe
give me your ideas. I will
Maybe I'll
make sure
futz around
that
with
wherever
something.
we sell them through, they will be as cheap as I can possibly make them.
Also, for merch ideas, I wouldn't mind a mug with the handsome monkey mug slapped on this.
Oh, you want the handsome monkey on it? Yeah, all right. Yeah, sure.
Yep.
We'll do that.
I'm just saying, monkey mug has a really good ring to it.
That is good. That is a very good point. Yeah, monkey mug.
Yes.
Oh my
That
God.
does sound good.
That is amazing. I may have to brush off.
You're welcome. I'm a genius. I know. Trust me.
All hail.
All right.
All hail.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody, bye bye.
I think we're done. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.